Hello, it is Jen with Aging Advantage, and I want to welcome you to our presentation today. Today, we are going to be learning about aging well in a changed world. And, I think as one of the initiatives, that we do at Aging Advantage is to, partner with organizations here locally to be able to provide you all with, learning and educational opportunities to learn more about different things. Over the last, several years, as we know, things have absolutely changed for a lot of us. Post-pandemic, a lot of us, still somewhat are struggling with jobs with, housing insecurities, with food insecurities, isolation issues. Also with just regaining our own like self-reliance and resilience and independence and all of those things. And, here in St. Louis, the area that we serve with Aging Advantage, the company that I'm with, our non-for-profit, we serve people in the St. Louis and surrounding area here in Missouri. And, we had a devastating tornado that unfortunately came through downtown St. Louis area about a year ago. And so, there are a lot of different things that have changed over time. And so, one of the things, again, that we, want to do is obviously provide you guys with educational opportunities to learn different tools and resources and things to be able to start living your best lives again and to just get you guys out there and keep you happy and healthy and safe and enjoying life with purpose and passion again. So again, today we're going to be talking about aging well. And I just encourage you to get cozy, get comfy, grab a drink, whatever you're drinking. Can't get it here. And anyways, water. And for me, but anyway, get comfy and let's jump in. Start with, if we're going to be real, over the last several years of our lives, a lot of things just really have changed, right? And a lot of it, probably we have never expected. The world looks completely different now than it did before the pandemic. And I think especially, how we connect with loved ones and even, how we go to the doctor, how we engage with our medical care, right? Now there's virtual visits, etc. But even how we spend our days have all sometimes changed. And although a lot of that, is change, through that change, one thing has absolutely stayed true, that our ability to adapt and to grow and to age well, no matter what life throws at us, is still there and is still present. And so today's theme is really all about acknowledging that change and embracing resilience. We're going to talk about navigating some of life and health and how do we stay connected in this post-COVID world with practical, real tips that you can start using today. So let's get started. First, let's talk about and begin with physical wellness, because it really is the foundation that everything else is built on. The first piece is staying active with regular movement. Now, I want to be clear that this doesn't mean, again, you need to run a marathon or join a gym that you don't feel comfortable in. It simply means finding ways to move your body consistently. And again, that could be a walk around the block, some gentle stretching in the morning, some chair exercises while you're watching TV, or even dancing in your kitchen while you're making some dinner. Just the goal is to keep your body moving in whatever kind of way feels good and sustainable to you. Next is going to be eating a balanced diet. And this is key. So try to fill your plate with a variety of foods, fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains. And as I said in the beginning, drinking water. I am over here, so don't forget to stay hydrated. especially in the summer months. But it's easy to forget to drink enough water as we age, since our sense of thirst can become less reliable over time. And a good habit to help keep this moving is to just keep a water bottle nearby and take some sips throughout the day rather than waiting until you feel thirsty. So for me, like the cup that I showed you in the beginning, is probably like a 30, 32 ounce cup. And I generally, fill that up in the morning. I usually fill that up about probably middle of day and then, probably evening again. But I mean, my goodness, depending on how many pills you have to take in the morning or the evening or whatever, you might almost go through one of those whole things just trying to take your pills. So for that matter, again, like just try to make the habit maybe of when you take your pills, you take them only with water. And that'll help you get a little bit of extra water in instead of, taking them with soda or tea or, something like that. Try to take your pills with water. And again, that's a way to kind of sneak in some extra water if you normally don't do that. Sleep is going to be another huge piece of physical wellness. Restful sleep really helps your body to repair. It also supports your immune system, and it even affects your mood and your memory. If you're having trouble sleeping, try to keep a consistent bedtime. Also, try to limit your screen time before bed and create a calm, comfortable sleep environment. You also typically want it dark in the room that you're sleeping as well, but being cognizant of if you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you might want some little, night lights or something like that to kind of light your way. Or they also make activated night lights. So if you're up and roaming around in the dark, they will, turn on when they see your movement. But finally, preventative healthcare. I want to discuss this too. So this means keeping up with your regular checkups, your screenings, vaccinations, etc., even when you're feeling pretty good. So prevention is way easier and often much less scary than actually catching a problem after it's already become serious. If you're managing a chronic condition, like for example, something like diabetes, high blood pressure, arthritis, etc., really lean on your trusted healthcare providers for guidance. And don't be afraid to ask questions until you fully understand your care plan. And that includes asking, what does, like example, let's say you have a heart condition or you have a kidney condition or, arthritis or something like that. It doesn't matter, kind of whatever it is. Don't hesitate to ask your provider, also your doctor or nurse, your provider, can I possibly also utilize a nutritionist? Can I talk to a nutritionist to see what am I supposed to be eating? Like, how am I supposed to be eating, or drinking stuff to better support the type of condition that I have going on? The other thing you could do too is again, ask if you could maybe do like an occupational therapy or physical therapy consultation if you feel like you have something going on in your body that just isn't quite right and you need a little bit of help and support. Bottom line is you deserve to feel confident and informed, like about your own health and understand what's going on in your own body and what you need to do about it. And everybody's body is different, as we all know. Now let's talk about something that is just as important, I think for sure, as your physical health, and that's your emotional and mental wellness. And I think oftentimes these aspects don't get talked about enough. Over the past few years, again, it's been genuinely hard, I think, on all of us, if we're being honest. And it's okay to acknowledge that. Uncertain times can bring stress and anxiety for sure. And one of the biggest tools we have for coping with that is just mindfulness. Obviously we want to reach out to counselors, and, or crisis counselors, etc. as well, if something is really, really, really overwhelming. But otherwise, mindfulness can simply mean just paying attention to the present moment without having judgment over ourselves or with others. That could possibly, in realistic terms, look like a few minutes of quiet breathing in the morning, sitting outside, just noticing the sounds around you, paying attention to nature or the birds chirping or something like that, maybe doing a guided short meditation. It doesn't have to be complicated at all, just, to be effective. That's the biggest key. Loneliness is something for sure that so many older adults have experienced, especially since the pandemic. Completely changed how often we were able to see the people that we love. And, including our grandkids, our own kids, and just even neighbors, people in our community, etc. A lot of people felt really isolated. So combating loneliness starts with fostering meaningful connections, even small ones. So reaching out to a friend with a phone call, or just having a little quick chat with a neighbor to catch up and see how they're doing. Maybe it might even look like a weekly visit with family, maybe doing like those Sunday, everybody gets together, dinners. But different things like that, or going to church, can make a real difference in how supported and how seen you actually feel. Participating in daily gratitude, I think, is another really powerful habit. So something as simple as thinking of one or two things each day that you're grateful for. Bonus points if you journal or write those down. But those can, those types of activities can genuinely shift your outlook over time. And I think something else that's important as well is, don't forget to keep your mind actually active and engaged. So learning something new. That could look like, picking up a creative new hobby, like painting, again, writing, working on a puzzle, doing something, stimulating. Again, like it doesn't have to be anything, crazy, eventful. It can just be, something simple, even as just reading a book. But having that stimulating environment around you and engaging in those things all help to keep your brain definitely sharp over time. And that's important, especially as you age. You gotta, that saying, you gotta, use it or you lose it. But, but I think, even with that being said too, that's where doing, again, doing puzzles or doing games, like doing games with other people is good. Now, again, with apps and technology, you can do like different types of word searches. You can do those and those kind of like word search kind of games or things like that on your phone. You can play chess, solitaire, etc. But you can even do that like on a phone or a tablet. You can do that through your TV as well, through like an app, maybe like Netflix games or different things like that. And in those ways, also, you can connect with other friends and family, literally globally around the country, wherever they happen to be. And that can be a really, really cool way, again, to just keep that mental sharpness and that learning going. Okay, next, let's talk about staying connected. Because ultimately, maintaining social ties has honestly changed also quite a bit in the last couple years. And a lot of us think, because we can't necessarily like physically see someone, then, it's kind of like the whole out of sight, out of mind, right? If you can't physically see someone, then it's like, oh, okay, that person's kind of out of your life. But I will say one of the things that is really encouraging and that was really exciting, if you will, that came out of the COVID pandemic was that it taught us that there are so many other ways that we can actually stay connected with one another. And, we've learned through video calls and social media, etc., those have all become wonderful tools for really staying close with loved ones, especially those people who like live far away. And, if you haven't tried to do a video call with a grandchild or an old friend, sometimes I get it, it can feel a little intimidating at first, but once you get the hang of it and you get going and you do it a couple of times, it's kind of like riding a bike, then you know what to do. It's a really lovely way to feel like you are truly like in the same room together and staying connected with someone, even, from a distance. Engaging in community activities and volunteering is also another great way to stay connected, whether it's a senior center program or like faith community, maybe it's a book club or volunteering opportunity. These activities can really just give you a chance to build relationships with other people who like doing the similar kind of activities that you do, which is nice. And you're also, doing something meaningful, which I think is great to be able to, give that gift back and that knowledge to someone else. Transportation, I know for a lot of people, we hear this a lot, can sometimes be a huge barrier to trying to stay social. And especially if driving as you've aged or, your disability has continued to evolve, unfortunately, can become more difficult for some people. And the good news is that there are transportation resources available in many communities. And, you can start with like senior transportation services, rideshare programs. There are public transit options also that can help you to stay mobile and get where you need to go. And finally, fostering intergenerational relationships, I think as well, can be so fulfilling. And that just means like relationships across different age groups. It can just bring so much joy and support. Like example of that would maybe be, spending time with grandchildren or even helping to mentor a younger person or just simply building friendships with people of different generations can really like enrich everyone's lives involved. And it's also fun too, because, as you age, obviously, if you make friends with people who are younger, sometimes they're a little more physically capable, than you are nimble, if you will, than you might be able to be. And so they can kind of help support you and do things, for example, like maybe they could come over and help clean out your gutters. But let's say maybe in your business life back in the day when you were still, working, if you're a senior, maybe you were kind of in the finance sector or something. And you could help, they could kind of help with your leaves out of the gutters and you could help teach them about finance, about personal finance or business finance or help teach them or help them with their taxes or, something. So, there's always different things that you can learn. Also connecting with some of those younger people and younger generations as well. A lot of them are very hip and knowledgeable, if you will, with all of the different online platforms, the apps, and different ways like that to stay engaged. So, different people, again, of different generations can help you kind of learn some of that tech and can be a really incredible support structure for you like that. Also, something, from an intergenerational kind of perspective that you could bring to the table, if you're older, that you might not realize is you might be able to teach them and share with them like how to cook. A lot of people, we were talking about this the other day, a lot of younger generation like have no idea how to actually make a pie crust, or how to make a pie from scratch, or how to make jelly, or, just basic kinds of things that back in the day, when canning was more prevalent and things like that, a lot of people just did. And, and just kind of took for granted that they knew how to do. And nowadays, some of those, I'm going to call it a lost art of cooking, and baking, even grilling, and stuff like that. But canning, gardening, all of those things. People just don't engage with as much of those types of activities as they used to, as again, how things have changed. We've definitely become a lot more of a convenience-based society with like TV, microwave food, and you know, fast food drive-throughs, and life has become faster and a little more, convenience based. So again, some of the younger generations, they haven't had to learn some of these different skill sets. Even might be like learning how to change the oil in their car, or something like that. And it doesn't even have to be anything like that complex again, but there's a lot of, things that you can all teach each other and share with each other back and forth through different generations, which I just think is, again, so beautiful, such a gift, and just really fun. Creating a healthy daily routine. I think, for sure, as you age, and at any age for that matter, but especially as you age, building a healthy daily routine and having that structure and balance and kind of certainty to know what comes next can really do wonders for our overall well-being. And establishing, the daily routine again can give you a sense of real purpose and meaning that can kind of help shape your day and shape your different interactions, etc. Can also help to give you, again, more like certainty in your routine to make sure that you are resting well, that you're getting, nutritious food in several times a day. And again, you can put in your schedule, moving your body. You can put in your schedule, engaging your mind and growing and learning and connecting and all the things. So, again, it doesn't have to be rigid. It could simply just mean, having a general rhythm to your mornings, your afternoons, your evenings. And by doing that and kind of having it kind of structured out, if you will, and some people will structure it out, only by the day. Some people want to structure their weeks out, a week at a time. Some people will actually like plan a month at a time. But when you do that, it really can give you something to look forward to. And I think that is just so important. Again, to helping to combat, the isolation and the feeling lonely, or not getting into the depression loop and cycle, etc. So, it can give you something to look forward to, which again might be like a hobby, might be a project that you're going to be working on. Maybe you're going to do some scrapbooking or something like that, but, or even just spending time with somebody that you care about is, I just think vital to making sure again that you're staying engaged. It's also important really to balance your physical rest with your social activity. And what does that mean? What does that look like? We don't want to overdo it. We also don't want to spend all day though too just sitting around in the recliner, watching TV. So that's where kind of having that good routine to your day can have kind of a healthy balance of both. So incorporating, spiritual wellness practices, whether that means you personally, like if you're doing like a prayer, or a meditation, maybe time in nature, just quiet reflecting, or you might, again, like we talked about a couple slides ago, you might at the beginning of the day or end of your day, even, write down a couple things of what you're grateful for, what went right today, random acts of kindness, maybe that somebody did something kind for you or you did something kind for, another person. I also like to include in this genre of kindness. I like to try to challenge you guys to also, when you're doing this kind of journaling exercise, again, random acts of kindness, right? That can happen towards you from somebody else, that can happen from you to somebody else. But I also think there's just a big component and a big piece that gets left out when people have this discussion and talk about this. And really, that's like acts of kindness for that day that you did towards yourself, where you chose you. I think that's so important and it's so incredible because what that might look like is instead of drinking, choosing the Diet Coke, maybe you chose to have a glass of water. Instead of sitting in the recliner and talking to your friend on the phone, you chose to get up and walk laps around your kitchen or something. Just different ways again that maybe yeah, that you chose you. Um, and you contributed to having yourself be healthier. Maybe that's you actually, like took a shower that day. Or you ate 3 times, that day when you normally haven't been eating as much recently. So, again, just kind of look for ways that you are taking care of yourself in that good, healthy routine and that healthy mix. Another aspect I think too for just kind of like this area again for boundaries, um, for boundaries and just again setting your daily routine is making sure that we're not engaging too much in negative things. So that could be like with news, watching negative news, watching negative social media things, etc. But I think it's something that we don't talk enough about because it's important to stay informed, yes, but constant exposure to distressing headlines and stressful, traumatic events and stories and things like that can take a real toll on your mental health over time. So consider setting specific times to check in on the news rather than just leaving it on in the background all day long on TV. So, and finally, make time for small joys and meaningful moments. So maybe again, that's like in the morning when after your breakfast or something, you enjoy your favorite cup of tea with a few minutes in the garden, call with a grandchild. Maybe that's when you again sit and do your journaling and you're reflecting. Or maybe that's when you just read a chapter in your book, or maybe you read, something spiritual and that, help start your morning off kind of on the right foot, as they say. Or maybe you do a little chair tai chi or yoga, again, just to get your body up and stretching and moving and all the things. Now, I want to close out our topic today with something close to my heart, which is embracing self compassion. And, aging well doesn't mean doing everything perfectly, as we all have learned. We are all going to mess it up. We're all going to turn left when we should have turned right at times. We're all going to do things that we look back and we wonder, like, why ever did I choose that, right? But I think at the end of the day, again, this is where that self-compassion comes in. It means, you're not going to do everything perfectly. Like I said, you have to allow yourself grace. And there's going to be days when your routine, like we just talked about before, absolutely doesn't go as planned. When your body doesn't cooperate the way it used to cooperate, when you can't do the things that you want to do, or things look a little bit different for you, but it's okay. Change sometimes again can feel overwhelming, but that's okay. And that is part of congratulations. You are a human being. um, well, The good, the bad, and, and the changing, right? That's just part of being human. And so, try to adapt to your routines and expectations with flexibility rather than holding yourself to like a rigid standard. A lot of times we got to celebrate the small victories, like a good night's sleep. You were able to sleep all night, a little walk that you completed, a phone call, maybe that you made it through, that you almost talked yourself out of not even doing in the first place. Just those small little wins deserve recognition. Maybe you went to an event. Maybe you went down at the, assisted living place or independent living place. You went down and you did bingo or something like that with everyone. So, again, it doesn't have to be anything super crazy, but it is, important to remember that your journey is uniquely your own. There is no single right or wrong way to do it, and there's no right or wrong way to age. And comparing your path to someone else's path isn't fair to you or isn't fair to them because everybody has their own, their own stuff. No one has the same background, no one has the same upbringing, etc. So everybody is going to look different. And, I think each step forward, however small it might be, is honestly genuinely worth honoring. So a lot, a lot of times you all are doing much better than you even remotely probably give yourself credit for. And I think, to kind of like sum up this giving yourself grace and self-compassion. I think a lot of times, and again, I think this is a little bit of the human condition sometimes, but a lot of times we do such a way better job at giving other people grace and giving other people compassion and things of those natures than we do at giving ourself grace and giving ourself compassion, and being patient with ourself. And so I think, at any age, we can all continue to work on all those skills for sure. So thank you so much for joining us today. And, I hope these topics, physical wellness, emotional, mental wellness, and staying connected, building a healthy daily routine, and just embracing self-compassion give you some real practical tools to support your journey to age well. Again, just in this changed world that we have nowadays. And, if any of these topics resonated with you, please, share in the comments, your thoughts and kind of what things you think that you're going to try to implement, what things you could possibly, do better with, etc. And, don't hesitate to reach out if you are interested in, different resources potentially. We are absolutely here to support you. And before we go, again, I just would love for you guys to follow Aging Advantage on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you'll find more presentations like this one. And, again, help you learn more about, aging gracefully and just all the different topics that can go along with that to keep you all supported out there and living your happiest, best lives. So thank you again for spending time with me today, and take care of yourselves, and we will see you all next time.